What's going on, guys? It's your boy Bobby from MCB TV, and today we're going to be presenting another review on the MCB TV YouTube channel. The game I'm going to be reviewing today is, yes, another racing game, Need for Speed Carbon. Now, a lot of people say that the Need for Speed series fell off after Most Wanted, and most people would agree with that. 100% most people would agree with that statement, considering Need for Speed did release objectively inferior games after 2005. But in 2006, I feel like we have a hidden gem, Need for Speed Carbon, that was released after Most Wanted. Is Carbon really a good game and was just overshadowed by Most Wanted? Or was Carbon really the beginning of the end for Need for Speed? Today, we're going to find out. There are 5 categories on which I grade games on: gameplay, graphics, sound, soundtrack, and replayability. Today, I'm going to be going over those 5 criteria and coming to a final score. The gameplay of Need for Speed Carbon is similar to its predecessors, Need for Speed Most Wanted and Need for Speed Underground 2, but based upon rival street racing crews instead of just individuals. Players run a crew and can hire specific street racers to be in their crew, and the active friendly racer is known as a wingman. Each employable street racer has 2 skills: a racing skill, scout, blocker, drafter, a non-racing skill, fixer, mechanic, and fabricator. Each skill is hidden with properties which allow you to either find hidden alleys and back streets, or draft your teammate to go a lot faster, or blockers, which actually take out the cars around you. Little bit of Burnout inspiration there. Cars that are driven by the wingman are different. Blockers drive muscle, drafters drive exotics, and scouts drive tuners, although the first 2 unlockable wingman, Neville and Sal, will drive whatever car that the player chooses. The story commences with you in a car chase with the M3 GTR that you attain at the end of Most Wanted. Now, Cross is the one chasing you, so this is, really ties in nicely to Most Wanted if you played the game before you played Carbon, which most people did. So, at the end of the car chase, you end up smashing a log truck, somehow totaling the car that you spent all of Most Wanted to try to attain, and you're about to get arrested by Cross. Then comes Darius. Darius comes in, and he starts having a conversation with you about some things that happened in the past. At this point, you have no idea what's going on, really. The story is okay, it leaves you to wonder what's going on a lot of the time. But with that being said, you are kind of drawn away from the story a little bit in the beginning, just because you have no friggin' idea what's going on with Darius and Nikki. After all the antics go down at that crash site of the M3, you go with Nikki and you go choose your first car for Need for Speed Carbon. Again, there are 3 car categories: exotic, tuner, and muscle. So you're going to choose one of the 3 cars that is presented to you, and that's the car you're going to start the game off with. It will also decide which territory you start taking over first, but we'll get into that later. So within the 4 main territories, there are smaller territories within those, where you have to win 2 of the 3 races available in the territory to capture it. Once you capture it, you move on to the next one, and so on. Once you have all of the territory in that region, you can actually challenge the boss and take their territory and steal their turf, like I said. However, with that being said, I feel like this isn't very difficult. I really feel like I could beat Need for Speed Carbon super quickly, despite the fact that you do have to be a little bit careful with your money if you're trying to upgrade your cars and get new cars. But with that being said, it seems like a pretty easy game. And that's my biggest gripe with the game, is the difficulty, to be honest with you. Every time you beat a boss, a new crew member from that boss's team wants to join your team and talks to you about the night that you were racing. The police came, they shut down, and there was some money that was stolen from Nikki that was unaccounted for. All of these stories that the boss's crew tells you are interconnected with one another, and they all point towards the original story of you stealing the money being bullshit. Eventually, after you beat the first 3 bosses, Nikki realizes that it's bullshit too, and she sides with you. She offers to be your crew member, and she has a lot of nice perks. I'm not just talking about on the racetrack. At this point as well, you would have upgraded your car from a tier 1 to a tier 2 or a tier 3. Yes, that means tier 1s and 2s are not going to be good as tier 3s, no matter how much you upgrade them. Gone are the days where Dodge Neons can go and beat the game and smoke Porsche Carrera GTs. Unfortunately, that's not a thing anymore. I personally liked it without the tier system, but it adds a nice progression to the game if you're looking at it objectively. So basically, you go through Darius's territory. He's a lying asshole, so you team up with Nikki and you try to take his turf and try to beat the game. It's very straightforward. The story is kind of interesting. The cutscenes definitely add a kind of atmosphere and vibe to it. With that being said, it is kind of basic and predictable, but you go through the game, you reach the final boss. Pretty much any tier 3 car I think can beat Darius pretty easily, including some tier 2 cars. There are cheap ways also you can beat it with a tier 1 car, but that's not really practical. Honestly, this game is pretty damn good. It's just a little bit too easy at times. Some of the pursuit chases, although they don't tie into the story and they're kind of just useless, they're extremely fun in this game too. I love getting in cop chase in this game. It's probably my favorite element in the entire game. But because it doesn't really relate much to the career mode or the story, it doesn't excite me quite as much as it did in Most Wanted. The free roam element is nice, and there's a lot of internet memes that have stemmed from this free roam mode, along with the cop chases, like I said. But beyond that, there's not much else to this game in terms of the career mode. The career mode is good. I just wish it was a little bit longer, and it had a little bit more depth to it, and a little bit better difficulty. Now, for the quick race mode, honestly, quick race mode is pretty straightforward, but you do have to play the campaign to unlock more tracks. It will give you a certain amount of tracks that you can run. It will also give you access to some of the higher tier cars in the game, like the Lamborghini Gallardo. But if you really want to get a lot in this game, you really want to dive deep into it, you pretty much need to play the career mode. For gameplay, I'm going to give this game a 9 out of 10. It's pretty damn good. It's not perfect. I would almost give it an 8 out of 10, but 9 out of 10 I think is fair. All the core fundamentals are there. The story is pretty decent for a racing game around this time. And honestly, I had a lot of fun on the game, despite its difficulty. Graphics. Now, this game was released on October 30th, 2006. Now, for 2006, these graphics are friggin' incredible in my opinion. Even on the PS2, which is the version I played first, it was by far the graphically best game I had played on the PS2 at the time. But on the PS3, honestly, I look at this game now, and it's not too bad. It's easy on the eyes. Same thing with the PC. It could actually be even better on the PC than the PS3. And it's really easy on the eyes. It's HD. Looking at it all these years later, I think the graphics were fantastic. And at the time, it was revolutionary. Graphics, 10 out of 10. One thing Need for Speed always tends to get right is sound. Despite some of the drift physics games in the mid to early 2010s, and some of the BS that goes on in those games and the microtransactions, whatever, one thing that Need for Speed always gets right is the sound of the cars. They always sound really good, and Carbon is no exception. That's just sound of the cars, of course. Some of the crew members, most people would say they're annoying, but I think it adds the game character when the crew members are yelling at you, telling you to do something, or watch out for this, or... It does kind of get annoying, but at the same time, it does add character to the game. Sound, I want to give it a 10 out of 10, but I'm just going to give it a 9 out of 10. Sometimes I wish the crew members had more lines within their arsenal of things to say to you. It would add even more character to the game. Not only that, but some of the cutscenes are like a different volume than the game volume, and that can get annoying sometimes. So I'm going to stop at just short of a perfect score. The soundtrack in this game is okay. There's not really a lot of songs, and the songs that are there, you really get used to them, and they tend to get a little bit repetitive. They are iconic with the game, and they're not technically bad songs, they're just not my favorite of the series. I'm going to give soundtrack a 7 out of 10. Now, if you've watched my 2 previous reviews, you'll know that a lot of the replay value for me personally is within how difficult the game is, and how much I want to go back and try to beat things that I previously couldn't beat. In this game, the replay value is actually good despite the difficulty, and that's something that, has to be said about the game. A lot of the, the race modes, some of the reward cards, some of the challenge series levels within the menu, you could spend a lot of time not even touching career mode on this game, and there's a decent amount of replay value to that alone. But then you dive into the career mode, you have the pursuits, you have some of the career mode races, people are still attacking your territory well into the game, and there's always something to do, I feel like, on this game, whether it's customizing cars, and making your ride as cool as possible, which I didn't mention enough of in the original part of the gameplay section. Customization is honestly amazing in this game as well, and that's one of the main reasons I keep going back to it. As far as replay value, again, I'm going to give it about a 9 out of 10. Now, for the final score of the game, taking all the categories into consideration, determining the weight of those categories, just on my personal opinion, I've given this game a 9 out of 10. This game isn't perfect, and a lot would say it's not as good as Most Wanted. But to people who say that the Need for Speed series died after Most Wanted, I don't think so. I think the Need for Speed series died after Carbon. Thank you for watching, guys. It's been your boy Bobby, and I'm out. Peace.